By understanding, we can then remember, and by remembering, we can act. Atin ang Pilipinas. Thank you. The EDCA is a mockery of our independence and territorial sovereignty and a violation of our Constitution, particularly on the provision of our independent foreign policy. Today, we go back to the annexation of the Philippines by the United States and to history to examine the record of American duplicity in its foreign relationship. We start with the Treaty of Alliance with France by the United States. It would be the first treaty of the 13 United States of America with another state and would provide a de jure recognition by a global power of the existence of that fledgling American states. The Treaty of Alliance with France by the United States should be taken into the context of the events around that time. 1776 was the Declaration of American Independence and the War of Independence. By 1778, when the treaty was entered into by the representatives of Louis XVI and the United States, then came, towards the last decade of the 18th century, the French Revolution. The French Revolution resulted in several wars, particularly the War of the First Coalition of monarchical powers under kings and royals against the republicanism of France at the time. France expected assistance from the United States, but the United States opted for neutrality. It was said that the Northerners were interested in trade. So during that War of First Coalition and the subsequent Napoleonic Wars, the American merchant marine fleet grew to become the second largest merchant marine fleet in the world after the British. Another reason for the neutrality stance of the Americans was that Southerners were fearful of the Republican ideals of universal brotherhood and the abolition of slavery. So during the existence of that military alliance, the United States entered into another treaty, what is known as the Jay Treaty of around the last decade of the 18th century with Britain, which was a belligerent state against the Republic of France. This unilateral move of the United States would find resonance in an event in the 20th century, which I will talk later. Now we turn to the annexation of the Philippines by the United States under McKinley's benevolent assimilation, and during which the first Governor General of the United States called us their little brown brothers. From the annexation, there was a question whether the Philippines would remain part of the United States of America, either as a Commonwealth like Puerto Rico or a territory like Guam. But they opted that they could not do. At that time we had around 7 million inhabitants, so they opted and was planning eventually to do away with our country, and it started with the Hair Hose Cutting Act of 1933, which would provide independence within a period of 10 years. But this was rejected by the Philippine Senate in 1933 because it provided for a perpetual establishment of U.S. military base. This was eventually amended into what we are all know as the Tidings-McDuffie Law, a 10-year Commonwealth period followed by independence. Remember, 10-year Commonwealth period. Then there was World War II, and this interrupted the 10-year transition period provided for our Commonwealth of the Philippine Islands. With World War II, Manila became the second most devastated city after Warsaw. America did not want to provide for an extension of another 3 to 4 years that would grant independence to the Philippines by 1950 because America would shoulder the rehabilitation of the Philippine Islands. So instead, they came out with the Bell Trade Act. We have to understand that the Commonwealth of the Philippine Islands was under the United States of America. Reparations by the Empire of Japan would be provided to the mother country, the United States of America. And so they came out with this Bell Trade Act, for which reparation would come through US because we were a Commonwealth. It would provide $800 million, but in exchange, we would allow parity rights and an amendment to our 1935 Constitution, which our own Senate ratified. Even an American Finance Assistant Secretary in the person of William Clayton said that the Bell Trade Act was clearly inconsistent with the foreign economic policy of the United States and clearly inconsistent with the American promise to grant the Philippines genuine independence. Then came the 1947 U.S.-Philippine-based agreement and that of the Mutual Defense Treaty of 1951, of which there are 8 articles, and for which this military Mutual Defense Treaty of 1951 is the basis of our present EDCA. I mentioned 1951 because in 1952, the United States entered also into a mutual defense treaty with the Republic of China, Taiwan, for which it has 10 articles, and the United States, in the same way it entered into the J Treaty of Britain in the 18th century, abrogated this mutual defense treaty by the recognition of the People's Republic of China in January 1, 1979. A Senator, Barry Goldwater, brought the case against the then President Carter before the U.S. Supreme Court. That Supreme Court refused to rule on that matter, calling the situation as a political question, and ever since it has been a textbook case for political question, not only for American law students, but also for Filipinos. So we are thankful that we have forum like this because it will give us a better perspective of ourselves as a people, a better understanding of our nation, of our history as a nation. By understanding, we can then remember, and by remembering, we can act. Atin ang Pilipinas. Thank you.